Good evening. I'd like to call the regular zoning commission meeting for Wednesday, December 10th to order. And if we could rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we're a little bit in between here. We are going to, or I'm going to move that we add an item to the agenda, that we have an election of officers. And the first officer position up is for chairman, and I am going to recuse myself.
And I'm going to raise a motion to elect Mark Lee as the chair of the zoning commission.
Second.
Second. And then you can.
All those in favor?
All those in favor, yep.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right.
So that,
thank
we have to say motion passes, right?
Yes.
Motion passes.
You need a motion and a second before we vote.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then once we vote, we have to, yeah, it was a second, and then we all voted, right?
Yes.
I mean,
What?
Procedurally, it was okay, yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to the vice chairman. I nominate Susan Monteleone to be vice chair.
I'll second it. Second.
Thanks, Jay. All
All in
right,
favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and also I'd like to nominate Rod for secretary.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now that that's sorted out, I don't think we need to seat any alternates tonight. I think we have, in fact, have all of our regular members.
Except Susan.
Now that we have Susan as the vice chair, we will have to seat one of the alternates for the vice chair.
All right.
So Dominic can be for
Dominic, you ready to, okay, we'll seat Dominic.
for
I'm gonna
Susan.
Mess up your last name, Fatabiene? Okay,
Yeah, it's good.
okay. So, in the new business, we have the public hearing to amend Section 12 of the zoning regulations. We had put this off for a month, and we're going to open the public hearing. And just in full disclosure to both Hugh and Kevin who are here, there is an intention on my part to continue the hearing a month. So we want to open it, and in the interim, we're looking to get not a traffic study so much as a capacity study. And the reasoning for that, just so you understand, I mean, you probably already know, there are a number of, the majority of the parcels in this contemplated area are under 5 acres. However, there are 2 that are much larger, and we want to leave enough wiggle room to accommodate what might happen on those 2 parcels. So that's what we're hoping to establish, sort of the outside parameters of how to leave room for those 2 larger parcels to participate in Main Street. So we're talking about the Stone property and the property, I forget her name, but it's the one where Miranda's is. Carol. Yeah. So that's the sort of the logic, as it were, behind that.
they can still use the PDD.
They can, then they will, but they're just larger. And one might expect them to be a more intensive use, possibly. So,
Kevin?
of
Hugh,
course, no, this is the
if
public
you,
hearing's
if you
open.
come, yeah, if you come
I
to the
wanted to
podium
just say that at the beginning so that it was out there. So, well, of course. If you could just state your name.
My name is Hugh Sullivan, I'm a licensed architect. I reside in Southbury, and I'm here this evening with my partner Kevin Bennett. Oops, sorry, he's also an architect. I must say we don't understand the traffic capacity analysis since we've been involved with the street for over 30 years. As Kevin said, PDDs trigger their own traffic report. Note that since the onset of IBM, when it was built over 30 years ago, traffic capacity was set for 2,000 employees plus 1,500 visitors. They're no longer there. There are no issues with traffic capacity. Okay? Our goal is to get mixed-use, residential, affordable housing on Main Street South. And it's just taken so long for us to get it. And it's just something that we really need your board to step up and
Well,
help.
if I may, Hugh, and I
Yes.
appreciate all the time and effort you've always put into,
Yeah.
whenever you're here. Isn't the application withdrawn at this moment?
Yeah, it
So
is. I'm just saying, but,
I mean,
but
I'm
it's-
not sure
but
I
it's-
understand
but it's
why
for
you want to
housing.
bang the
It's-
table when it's actually technically withdrawn.
no, I'm not speaking about the app. I'm just saying on all these 5-acre parcels, that you're speaking about. We have the capacity analysis, I don't know what it's gonna generate personally, that's all.
Oh, okay. Fair.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
to
mean,
be honest.
when we've done them on the street, everything's been operating level service C. And, we have the entire street between 14 and 15, and it's been well documented. It's just, I didn't understand, when we heard that this is going to be the route, it just prolonged the process for us. That's all.
Well, not to belabor it, but my understanding and expectation is that we'll have that information in advance of the next meeting. We'll be able to close the hearing and vote.
If
That's
if
my understanding.
If that's the course of action, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Well, that's my understanding. I
Okay.
just wanted to, fairly and honestly tell you that it's out there.
Understand and recognize as a design professional, I realize you have a brand-new board here. And, we're trying to really educate everyone that we can of, the process that we've undertaken here in Southbury and Main Street. And, we're gonna be your board's biggest advocates, and we've always enjoyed working with your board and the planning commission. We're just, concerned based upon the last voting cycle, we were under the assumption, that the planning and zoning board, personally, I thought that was gonna happen here tonight, so I realize I've been told it's possibly 2 years from now, which is great. But, there was just a lot of uncertainty that, I think with your comment tonight, you've addressed for me, and I appreciate it.
So, is there anything that you want to
No, I've said enough.
add
said
as to the language amendment itself? I know you've had a lot to put into it, and you've thought about it.
No, I think, the PDU regulation that was created that your board approved, we still stand by it. We have no issues with it. It was well-crafted with your board and commission, and, we see it as a new avenue forward for the design of Main
So
Street.
just for the benefit of the newer members.
Yes,
If you could take a step back
yes.
and indicate what your background in the town is long,
Yes.
and your experience with this section 12 has been what?
When it comes to land use development on parcels under 5 acres and over 5 acres, we've coordinated most of the PDDs in the town of Southbury, which would have been Southbury Green, the Riverview Cinemas.
Specifically on Main Street, right?
Correct,
Yeah.
specifically
We're
on
just
Main
asking,
Street.
not
Mind you,
parcels
you can do a PDU and a PDD outside of Main Street, not an issue. So the PDUs, we've done several of them on the street, as well as outside of the town and the community. But the PDU, we needed the ability to try to introduce residential uses to that district without using an old 1966 regulation that Heritage Village had, requiring 15,000 square feet of land for a residential unit. That was fine for Heritage Village, but it doesn't work for Main Street.
And the amendment that's been proposed, correct me if I'm wrong, I was here for a few meetings ago, but it's proposing that you're allowing the parcels on, can you not hear me, the parcels on Main Street to apply for variances under the PDU standards that are greater than 5 acres or less than 5 acres?
Less than 5
That are
acres.
less than 5 acres. So
Correct.
all of those parcels on Main Street with this adjustment will be allowed to utilize the PDU language to apply for
And
a
it's not
P.
as of right, you still have to come to the zoning commission.
Once it's approved.
Correct,
I
correct.
just meant with the language
Yes,
is
correct.
proposing. Okay, just making
Correct.
sure.
If I could, Kevin Bennett,
Okay. Okay, you got questions?
Kevin Bennett, Bennett Sullivan Associates, also a resident of the town. The PUD was always available, and we have used it in the past where we did housing over retail. And we'd done that over and over and over in a bunch of different places on Main Street. But, it was never brought into the 15,000 square foot. Like a lot of them exceed that without the commissions even realizing it, Dolores, the planner, even realizing, or us even thinking about it. But you could always do it to put residential over the commercial. But when you get into the 15,000, and that's what happened when we started to work on this project, was it was brought up that we don't have the land area. And we were kind of like, it's never been an issue on apartments. So we looked at section 12 and we tried to just take that one little piece out. But then it didn't give you the ability to, move with a volume, with height, with FAR, the area ratio, floor area ratio. It didn't allow you to move a building forward without using the 50-foot setback if it didn't really need to be used. There were a lot of things that the PDD had always allowed us to do, but the PDU didn't. So that was part of, and I called it in our meetings, PDD light. And it allows you to do everything a PDD does. It would just be a much more streamlined process. The PDD process is very cumbersome. You have, steps to it, you have concept plans, you have, development plans, you have your submission plans, and it took, we tell a client that wanted to do a PDD, a year to 2 years. And they'd look at us like we had three heads. It's like a simple thing in the regs, but the process took a long time, and it was very cumbersome. And I think that a lot of what's been revised will allow that process to be a little more streamlined and a lot more targeted to the ability to come up with some good ideas that may not be within the regulations. And you have to remember, these regulations are old, and a lot of the formulas that they use for setbacks and things like that were fine at the time, but people now are starting to do more with these lots, and our town is not what it was in '67 when they came up with a lot of these, so that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. You done, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I just said.
You're sure? Well, it is, the public hearing, and it's open, so if there's any other members of the public who have something to inquire about or to say about this amendment. I don't know if anyone on the board has questions. We have Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Bennett here.
I do have one question around it, which is like, this is for zoning for lots that are smaller, for the potential of putting apartments over retail, which is, I think, pretty good idea. That aside, the only thing I'm saying is, or that I'm wondering about is, how do you deal with the parking situation if you have such a small lot? Is that external to the rest of the planning district? Or like, if you have, 30 houses or 30, that's a lot, 7 apartments or something above it, and you have upwards of 14 cars, like starts to get to a pretty big parking lot to be included along with retail services. Thank you.
Good question.
It is a good question, but the regulations call for 1.5 cars per apartment. So 30 apartments would be 45 cars. but PUD in that sense would allow you to say, listen, and I have apartments and, 14 apartments has, 28 parking places and our sites, and it's nowhere near full. I cited towards a few extra cars, but in hindsight, that one to two cars per apartment, 1 to 1.5 is fairly good. 2 is a little bit high. A lot of towns ask for 2. But what I'm saying is, if you're in an area that may have shared parking in next door, you may have the ability to say, listen, let's do 1 car per apartment, or you may be able to show parking spaces and put them in reserve. We did that with the Paparog Office Park back in, 1983, when we first got that approved. It had a much higher requirement for parking. 25 years later, 30 years later, we repaved the parking lot. We took about 30% of the parking places out and planted grass because they were just never used. And our parking standards are fairly high, but they're good to regulate, the size of the projects, which septic will regulate the size of the projects, but like you say, parking. But that gives you the ability, as if, the regulation says you need 40 cars and you really think you can use 30, they can allow you to do 30 cars and it would be fine. You don't have to keep, we used to keep whatever percentage in reserve, just dot them in and not build them. And they were usually put in areas that would be difficult to build if they ever needed to be put in. 32 Poverty Road, I think I've got 10 parking places in reserve in the event that we ever needed them, but we don't even use the cars that we need there, and we probably got 20% less than we needed, so
I think
But- that's all.
also to your question, the plans that were proposed back in October had underground parking and
No.
they had alternatives to, so yes, maybe it's 1.5 cars per apartment, maybe it's 2, but the plan was below ground. And that's not to say that this is 100% what's gonna go forward, but there's solutions outside of just with smaller lots. And I think those solutions have become more relevant as technology in the building has advanced, right? So what you're talking about in the 80s, like, I don't think that was really even a plan, so, that's all.
But in that particular place, we have the required parking on the site, so.
Thank you, Kevin.
I have a question, I'm sorry, does anybody else have a question? I have a question more broadly about, like, I like talking about the adjustment to the regulation, specifically in relation to the property that you guys are talking about, because I think it puts a really clear set of expectations on it, so you can kind of apply them to something that is real. But I do wonder what other lots perhaps might come in front of us or the appellate board, depending on the request, that we haven't thought about and we haven't allowed for. One of the things I think I like about this is it does allow for us to approve things outside of the standard. The PDU is an alternative way to come forward, so it does give us the opportunity, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we still have the discretion, right?
We do.
So I think this is just an opportunity for architects, business people to come forward and bring things to us that didn't exist prior, right?
If you're gonna set a standard that you can point to and say, listen, this is what we did.
Sorry, Kevin.
I'm sorry, we're streaming live, so I'm so sorry.
No, I understand.
Thank you.
Kevin Bennett still. This gives you the opportunity, but you've got to remember, it still has to have, a purpose for the community. You can't just come in here and say, I think that, some awful use would be advantageous for the community, and you could say there's a commission. We don't think so.
Well, they can come in and say it, though, I think is
Yeah.
the point, right?
No,
But we can
they
say
could,
no.
they could still do it now, and they could meet, the regulations by the numbers, but you still have to decide whether or not, it's in the best interest of the community. That's what the PDD and the PDU are all about. So that gives you full carte blanche. It's not a matter of right. You can't just say, oh, well, you've said it in here, you have to approve it, which zoning regulations do. If you meet all the criteria, you know, health, safety, you know, welfare and area, you have a hard time denying it, which we've been fought on a lot of projects over the years that met the letter of the law, and they were just, you know, difficult.
Understood, yeah.
Yeah, from my understanding with Jordan, we maintain full discretion.
Yeah.
With it. But now I'm curious, so this aside, I'm curious, we're also doing this comprehensive zoning rewrite. And at the same time, why don't we start having a conversation on potentially just rezoning Main Street?
You
And I don't
think
know,
that-
I'm
I think
just
we were trying
asking
to
the
do this
question
quick.
right now for this group
Yeah.
here, but.
You
I
don't
think
think
what
the
ended up happening in
37
October-
different zones is a good idea?
I think, look, I was only in attendance in the, as a
Thank you,
member of the
thank you,
society.
Mr.
so,
Bennett.
yeah,
No, the point was to quickly
To get it done.
put this
quickly.
through quickly so that we could do something now, rather than wait a year or 18 months or whenever the actual
Zoning.
final change is in place. And that was, I think that can be accomplished, and I think it will get done. All right, so that, gonna leave the hearing open till the next meeting. I don't think it gets referred.
Do you ever do special meetings?
We do,
We
but
have.
we don't invite you.
That's fine. That's fine, no problem. Take me out.
Yes, you're in.
No, I mean, it just,
Yeah, special meetings do happen.
I'm sorry.
In fact, we did one, just,
The reason I ask that, you know, we're used to working in other towns that meet twice a month. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but what it does is it just speeds the process up. You know, and it helps, but if this is the type of
does the
thing.
26th work for you?
To Christmas Day.
All right, we'll do it next month then. But I appreciate it.
But remember, with this type of thing, on all of our projects with planning and zoning commissions in Southbury, we've always made your board members part of our process. We've never neglected you. We want your input. You know, we reside in the town. Our kids grew up here. You know, my mom used to be in the zoning commission, was on the board of selectmen. You know, so we know about the town. And we like to get feedback, and we like to do great projects for our community and for the residents of the community. It's important to us. So, you know, your dialogue and acceptance of this regulation, you know, has been, you know, tantamount for providing different types of diversity on the street. So, I am done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Done with questions? Yeah, okay. All right, so then we'll put that on for next month.
So we keep the public hearing open then.
Keep the public hearing open till the next meeting. And it won't be the 26th.
I think it's already on the calendar for the 10th.
Thank you. All right, so that brings us to the old business then. Thank you both. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
guys.
Happy holidays if I don't see you.
Thank you.
So that's the comprehensive zoning rewrite. And we have,
That was not the comprehensive zoning rewrite, that was just the amendment to the regulations.
no, our old business is the comprehensive rewrite.
Sorry, I'm
And
sorry.
that's what we're
That's what we're
gonna
headed.
move
Got
on
it.
to. No,
I
no,
did too.
no.
I was taking my,
It's okay.
let me get it right. What's your name? Taylor, nice to meet you.
Taylor, Ms. Daigle.
Thank you, Taylor.
Oh, this is what came to us in email, yeah.
Yeah, there's an, I know, it's a
Full
desktop.
versions, thank you.
So hi, everyone. Taylor Daigle. I'm with SLR. We're working on your comprehensive rewrite. Vince was not available to join us tonight. He's traveling today, but Vince McDermott is working on the project as well. And full disclosure, we're both also working on your separate study for the PDD process. So I think the couple conversation points we'll have tonight are gonna actually help inform some of your questions you're asking about parking and housing in the area as well. So I have 3 documents in front of you, a quick memo, which we can go over last, I have a 11 by 17 version of the annotated outline, and then I have an abbreviated, reduced version that's just a little bit easier to read, and I think just a better, clearer picture of where we're headed with this. I know we have some new members. Would it be helpful for me to back up and explain what we have done so far? Okay.
Well, I was just going to say that you gave us a timeline of progression through this process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are on
It's posted publicly.
step 4?
We are, if I'm remembering correctly, I think we're working on step 2 and 3 right now.
No, but it's the 4th block, right? Is that right? No. No, I had it right with me. Anyway, yeah, why don't you give us a little brief?
Yeah. So,
but-
we are working on taking your existing regulations and making them more user-friendly, easier for you all to digest and apply to the projects that are coming forward. There's a lot of reorganization going on and progress to be made, but the general tasks that we have are the baseline review report, which was wrapped up at the previous meeting or two. In that step, we did a deep dive of your existing regulations and identified the problems, the inconsistencies, and opportunities for us to improve the regulations through this project. That's kind of a guiding document for us. I go back and refer to it, making sure that we're bringing all those new ideas forward and making sure we're consistent with what we said we were going to be doing in that report. The second phase that we're looking at tonight is the annotated outline. So this is where the puzzle starts. We take all of your existing sections in the text and put it into more logical categories. So we've brought your, was there 17 sections or so, down to a really organized 8 sections. And it's generally organized in the format of trying to understand the background information, and then where and what you can do, and then how you're gonna be able to do that. That's generally the flow we like to take. And then once we get this annotated outline organized and finished, wrapped up, we move into migrating all of your materials into that new format. So they have their new home, and that's where they sit. And then we start diving in and how are we gonna edit these, make these work for you, fix the inconsistencies you may experience, and, realign processes and making sure that these are, regulations you're comfortable with for using in the foreseeable future. And then we move on to the final documents and the adoption process. So we're still really early on. We are, at that outline stage. We're trying to confirm most of that tonight and through the next, week of review or so. And once that's all set, we can start doing a lot of the background work of migrating that material over. And then we begin reviewing with Jordan and then reviewing with yourselves. In addition to, we start introducing everything to the public as well. So that's the public engagement is planned to start next month, which we will be kind of hashing out details with Jordan about the dates, when and where, and the material that we'll be presenting at that.
Is there still opportunity to make additional notes and comments for those of us who weren't members of the board previously?
Yes.
Certainly.
And the timing on the expectations for those from us?
So, my thought was envisioning comments by the end of December 17th. I know this is a lot of material to digest if you're new to the board, so I think we can be flexible with that. I do feel that this outline is in a good 85 to 90% of the way there, but your input will be crucial to making sure we're at 100%. So if you feel you need more time with digesting that, we can still proceed with the next section while also fine-tuning it as we go. It's somewhat the nature of the regulations themselves that as I begin moving material, we find other things that weren't revealed right off the bat that we may want to, have a new section heading or something like that.
And this is just process-based, just generally, public comment on this will be held until we've made all of our suggestions and Jordan and your team have made updates, and then we'll present it for public comment, correct?
Correct. We do public engagement earlier on to introduce the project and get feedback on generally things people might not understand or sections that they are like, they know are complicated. That's really like an information gathering component, and then we will start to introduce the materials themselves after we've migrated up and updated as, you know, in consultation with you all.
That's probably on the chart with the schedule. I'm just wondering about scheduling. So if we have to make
Yes.
comments by December 17th, and then we still have to make edits and update and go through a review process, like what, I'm just wondering what the goal is for the first round of public review.
The first round, well, public review will not start until, the general public hearing would not be until 6 months out or so.
Okay, got it. May, is that what Rod said? Okay, so, that's plenty of time. I was thinking,
Yes, no, we've got quite a few months of work to do ahead of ourselves. And we will have, I think we're scheduled for 3 work sessions with yourselves to hash out the details of specific sections that we know are just gonna be crucial to editing here. And at those meetings, it will be myself, Jordan, and Vince McDermott. He'll be present and, you know, helping facilitate those conversations and making things go smoothly here.
So we have the schedule that Taylor shared with us last month here. If we want to pass this maybe one around, but based on what you had provided us, we had an initial public hearing scheduled for January. They were going to do, what do you call it, a targeted informational meeting in May of next year, and then a final public hearing in July. And then somewhere, I mean, in between there, it looks like we would do the edits as necessary. And then the adoption of the regulation based on this was sometime after August.
okay, I think I heard that January date, and I was like, that's,
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't have, that's enough
the
time.
January date is
Sorry.
just us explaining to the public what we're doing.
Thank you.
And then just getting some thoughts about any concerns that they have off the bat. We've heard a lot of the commission's concerns and this town staff's concerns, but we just want to make sure we cover those bases and don't push that off too late. The stakeholder meeting, I will say, I anticipate we're going to be moving that up a little bit, rather than, I think it's currently scheduled for May. That's going to be really important for developing those site development standards and making sure we fine tune those to fix or create standards that are usable for the community as well. So we are anticipating moving that one up, but that will be, that's not a fully public engagement activity, I guess I'd say. So, any other process questions?
Just so I understand the scope of what we're doing, are we just reorganizing to make it make more sense, or are we editing language as well?
We are correcting language as well. The meat of the project is reorganizing. It's inherently reorganizing inherently changes a lot of the language and cleans up the inconsistencies. But we do know a number of sections that we are proposing to merge, eliminate, rehome, update for state standards, things like that. And we can go through a couple different examples of that while we go through this outline. But there will be new content coming along.
Okay.
Certainly.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, so we can take a little quick look and run through the, I'd like to run through like the blown-up version. The detailed version is more for your reference, and we can discuss those in more detail if you'd like. But I think this will be more conducive to our conversation. So the annotated outline is organized in 8 new sections. It goes introduction, districts, area and bulk standards, use standards, special developments, site development standards, administration, and then definitions. We generally like to propose this structure to begin with. It helps us really organize the thoughts of where, what, and how we're doing this. I think I'll start with the district section. We are proposing to group your districts by the nature of them, residential, commercial, or industrial. You also have special districts and overlays, which we will include. A few things to highlight. I want to focus on the industrial districts area. You'll see the first one here is Corporate Park District. So that is actually your R60C zone, as it currently is, which I understand is the IBM property. We wanted to propose renaming that district to better reflect the use that's on that property. We didn't want anyone reading that name and conflating it with a possible residential use. So that's one proposed edit that would impact your map, but, you know, we have discussed with Jordan, and he thought that might be a good idea to better reflect the uses there. You'll also notice your M districts, we are now calling manufacturing, and that is largely to distinguish them from the new industrial district that was adopted. It's just a naming convention, but we just wanted to make sure you guys were all aware of that. In the special district section, you'll see we have planned development district, but we do not have the PDU. Vince and myself and Jordan have discussed, and we feel that we are heading towards merging those two regulations, keeping both of their intentions and their uses, but fine-tuning them so that they can be applied where they are appropriate, and eliminate any inconsistencies with approval processes. So I understand that's a very dense section of your regulations right now, and we want to do that very carefully. That's one we will be most certainly bringing to you and discussing in a detailed work session on how that would operate. To your questions earlier about this amendment to section 12, that will still be in operation, and if approved, can be utilized until we decide how we would be bringing these two regulations together in the best way possible for you all. One other point to highlight here is the overlay districts. So we have 4. The floodplain district, we have recommended that we're going to update that to reflect DEEP's model ordinances and kind of just make sure we have those within those zoning regulations. Currently, the regulations have a little bit, but they also refer to town ordinances for the flood damage control, which are outdated with DEEP's regulations. So we want to bring that all up to speed and make sure we have the right information in here. And then finally, the Aquifer Protection District, you'll see it's struck out. The Aquifer Protection District legally falls under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Commission. So what we are proposing is to pull those regulations out of the zoning, allow them to readopt them through the process that DEEP requires, and then we will have references within these regulations that ensure that if somebody needs that approval, they receive that approval prior to coming to you. The districts itself will not disappear or anything like that. It's just a matter of process and making sure that it's adopted in the correct manner. Any questions on the district content?
So the PDD bullet there, there's, what do we have, 20, 21?
Correct. Quite a few.
And each one is unique. Is the idea that is going to become a subchapter, or is it just going to be kind of not noted?
So each PDD has their own regulations that are not embedded in the code already. You'd have a lot to embed if that were the case. The placeholder here, you can kind of think of it as a floating district, right? There will be the criteria that need to be met in order for somebody to utilize that regulation as is. And they can land that on a property that meets those requirements. This section itself will outline those requirements, the process.
I guess I'm just suggesting that maybe there should be a line or two saying, currently there are 21
Okay.
such districts. you know
Yeah,
what I
we
mean?
can certainly make sure that it's clear that those regulations are still in effect, still on file, and accessible.
Wait, just so I understand, the PDDs will still, like this, in here, this is just saying, it's outlining what a PDD is and what the process is, but we'll still maintain those as separate regulations, like any new ones that come in.
Of course,
Same
Okay.
process.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah.
It'll just be a new home for it.
okay. Good. Thanks.
So section 3 is area, bulk, and lot standards. The idea here is that this is where somebody can go if they're trying to develop their site and find out the minimum requirements for their property. These are their lot standards. If they have an interior lot, how are they going to manage that? What are the exceptions to setback requirements? There's quite a few, so we want to make sure that's all, you know, in an easily accessible place and they're not jumping across the regulations to find them. We also plan to house information about accessory structures here. So these are our items like sheds and fences. And we understand that we're looking to add information about accessory solar equipment. That would also be housed here. So all of these things are going to affect the dimensions of the property will be housed in one location.
But not the accessory dwelling unit.
No, that is treated as the use. So that will be in our following section.
Okay.
So uses and associated standards are section 4. This is going to be a dense section, but well organized and easy to find exactly what you want to do. So we will include our prohibited uses, we will have our performance standards, and we will have the consolidated use table. It will be generally similar to what you currently have as a use table, but it'll be cleaned up, and we're going to take a fresh look at the permissions across districts, making sure it's aligned with what your intentions are, what you want to see for the developments. This is an opportunity to say, you know, maybe this commercial development in Main Street should not need a special exception. Maybe we need to make this a site plan approval if that's, you know, if the use is fit for that. So that consolidated use table is going to be really handy. It is a big project to pull that one together, but we will make sure we get that in front of you as quickly as possible with these regulations. We're working on how to group these conversations so that they're the most efficient and productive conversations, and the uses is going to be a big one. So individual uses that have additional standards, like your accessory dwellings, your corporate offices, your agricultural standards, they're all going to be grouped in here so that if somebody comes to you and says, I want to understand, you know, what are the extra requirements for the ADU on my property that I want to construct, Section 4, the uses and standards, has that in its home. These are existing uses that in your code that have these additional standards. I expect a handful more to be added to this to reflect the new uses that the town wants to incorporate. One of which you know, just in speaking with Jordan was, you know, agritourism. We want to make sure that would be flexible for if an active farm wants to pursue a different economic endeavor on their property, what could they do? We do have best practices for agricultural uses from the state that we we're going to review and propose what would work for the town. This also ties back to the baseline review where we set a priority of making sure the regulations are farm friendly and making sure that we have adequate regulations for those businesses. I think one item in here I'd like to point out and kind of just have on everyone's radar is the concept of middle housing. So currently, multifamily for you all is only permitted through the PDD process, as I understand. You do have two-family dwellings, which are permitted if you have 1.75 times the lot area, and, you know, some other conditions. Conversations with Jordan, he wants to explore 3 and 4 family dwellings. That being said, is anyone familiar with Housing Bill 8002, which was signed last week?
Not yet.
So I can give a highlight of the 2 changes that are going to impact this update. The first is middle housing. So forgive me, I don't have the date where it becomes effective. It could be January 1, it could be July 1, I'm not sure which it is. But as of that effective date, any lot in Southbury that is zoned and permitted to have a commercial or a mixed use as it is right now must allow middle housing of 2 to 9 units by site plan review only. That has implications for your PDD, this decision on the PDD regulations. Your business, from my understanding, at the moment, it's going to affect your business 1, 2, 3, and 4 districts. I am not fully clear if it's going to affect your corporate park district at all. I don't think it will, but I just want you to all be aware that we're still digesting the bill itself and how that's gonna implement. But that is gonna be a factor that we need to decide, how best to handle, how you'd like to implement it, if there are specific conditions that need to be considered for that type of development. I know that's a big one, and so that's something we will, Vince and I have been digesting the bill for the last week or so, and we're doing our best to come up with the answers as quickly as possible, but I think the fact that you're doing this right now, it's a great time that you're ahead of the game, that you're already editing your regulations, so. But that's a big one that we just want to have that on your radar. Those uses in those districts will not be allowed to have a special permit or a public hearing process tied to them. It has to be site plan summary review only. So that will be a big change.
Only if they're proposing the middle housing though, right? If the proposal is.
Correct.
continue to be, yeah.
They're not required to include that in their proposal, but if somebody comes to you with that development, it has to be considered. Yes. So section 5 will be special development types. These currently are just your industrial park regulations, cluster residences, and the multifamily dwelling groups. As discussed in the last phase of the project, we want to bring forward the regulations that are in the POCD to like the guidelines for that, to make sure that they're all housed there and accessible. It reduces the need to jump through documents, and they will still remain only permitted through the PDD, but at least the regulations will be here as well. Site development standards, I think, will be hopefully the most improved section of the code. The regulations are spread throughout your existing docs, but I think this reorganization is going to be really helpful in making sure everybody knows they've got to, any development that comes in needs to review this section for all of these parameters and make sure they've included them in their design. I think the first one I'd like to stop on is the off-street parking. So this is the second part of the housing bill that's going to be incorporated into this update. So we already understood that the required parking spaces were going to be something we took a look at to make sure that they're well aligned with standards and meeting the needs of the town right now. That being said, residential developments that include under 16 dwelling units are no longer allowed to have any parking minimums tied to them. You cannot require 1.5 spaces for each unit. It is at just a need basis, what the developer expects for that development. If it is above 16 units, you may require it, but at no more of a rate of 1 space for a studio or a 1-bedroom, or 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom or larger. So your residential parking standards will change to those 2 ratios. That being said, there's another component of that regulation, which might be a larger conversation for you all to have if there's concerns about a specific area in town. But the housing bill allows you to adopt they call it a conservation and traffic management district. It has to meet certain requirements. It needs to be contiguous. It needs to be 10% of the land in the town. But within that district, you can control the minimum parking with residential again. Now that's a larger study. I don't think that's something we could adopt during this process. But if you have concerns about that component from the bill, that is an opportunity to explore in the future for managing that parking ratio situation. Any questions on that one?
So the conservation district is 10% of the overall area of the town?
I believe so, but
That's massive.
it is quite large.
Yeah, okay, all right, just,
Yeah,
okay.
it's a dense bill. There's a lot of information in there. Some tools, some items that are going to be hard for some towns, but like I said, I do think you're in a good spot that we can start tackling those now and make sure you're as up to date as possible by the time these regulations are ready. So moving on to the next page is just continued site development standards. we've talked about this one before, but outdoor lighting, we are proposing to realign to dark skies. We will start there and add in the details from your regulations as needed or as appropriate that you all see fit. We'll make those more usable for you guys. And then another two I just want to highlight here, soil erosion and sediment control and stormwater. We just want to update those for compliance with deep regulations. Currently, I believe both of those reference a separate town ordinance, which are outdated, similar to the floodplain ordinance.
That wouldn't get wrapped in with the inland wetlands DEP adjustments?
Are they currently undergoing?
I don't know. I'm just, you said that on the first page, we were talking about, the Aquifer Protection District being transitioned over to them because the DEP, or a piece of that was related to the DEP.
Yeah.
So I just thought maybe that was an opportunity, just curious.
These will be separate, but I will say, we're not going to be embedding super detailed regulations into your code. These are going to be referring them to Deep's manual to make sure that we're up to date and using the correct manual there.
If we make those references too, if the DEP starts to update in the future, we don't have to continue to update our regulation, we'll just point to the.
Correct. And that's the exact problem we're running into right now of why we want to make sure we're doing that, because the ordinances that are being referenced are outdated.
Yep.
The next,
Really quickly, was there any feedback or expected changes on signage? I know that was something that we talked about.
so that's one of those ones where I think when we have the stakeholder meetings with businesses and people who are trying to put these signs up, we're gonna get a lot of feedback on. We've proposed this organization right now. I actually don't think your current regulations are too far from this organization. But what we will do is get everything into the easiest way to read it first, and then we will start fine tuning as to where we're having issues with implementing those. And I think the community feedback there from those that are trying to use, or get signs approved, will be really helpful in making sure that we have like a set of regulations that is valuable to both parties here.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Section 7 is the administration and procedures. This is another big section. One of the big items that we identified and were asked to work on was making sure that the procedures are well aligned with what the expectations are for each board. That being said, we know this is also going to change in 2 years. So our intention is to write these regulations in the best manner possible so that when you get to that point where you now have a planning and zoning commission, these are not going to need an overhaul. They're going to be written so that the proper procedures are, in this instance, the text will say something along the lines of, the P&Z Combined Commission has been authorized but not established yet. Once established, they will assume the responsibilities of, in this case, the zoning and the planning commission effectively at once the board is effective. That way we don't have to go back in 2 years and reaffirm who's doing what. So before we jump too far ahead into that process, we just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page as to where those duties are all going to be aligned. Southbury does approvals in a bit of a different manner than we've seen in a lot of communities. So the proposed duties that we have here are what we are most familiar with and what we've seen works with a combined commission generally, but slightly separated here. So zoning commission, we expect that you will all remain responsible for special permits or your current special exceptions, site development plans, and zone text amendments and zone changes. That's pretty typical of what we see in other communities. Planning Commission would hold approvals for subdivisions, cluster subdivisions, the PDD by your referral, and the 824 referrals. As I believe that's largely how it's aligned right now. They have more responsibilities that are shifting towards you in this update, though. The Zoning Board of Appeals their duties will revert to what they are statutorily gifted, which is variances from the zoning regulations and appeals that are filed for decisions that are already made. The zoning officer will take on, keep the zoning permits, certificate of zoning compliance. We are proposing to put sign permits with them that are not associated with the site development plan itself. So if it's just, all they're doing is updating their sign, they can go to the ZEO for that approval. Another component that I think we should discuss once we start, or we can have a discussion on it tonight, how you feel about these duties, but another opportunity is site development plans can be split from an administrative perspective versus what comes to the commission. We can develop it so that there are thresholds where they need to come before you, whether that's a square footage change, impervious coverage change, a density, some type of parameters there, where if they fall under that, if their site plan is only for adding accessory structure of a certain size or something, they can be approved by the town staff administratively. That's something we can consider. I know the current organization is bringing more responsibility to you all in the interim before the commissions are combined. So if there are concerns that you feel there will be too many applications before you, that type of measure with site development plans may be an option to mitigate that difference right now. Any initial thoughts on that process?
Well, I'm hoping that, and I'm sorry that he's not here to join us tonight, that Jordan would have been chiming in on most of these things, so.
Yeah, he had great input on the process. I think he does kind of trust the vision of where this is headed. It's just, it makes a lot more sense once you see the regulations fully in front of you. And I know that's a few steps away, but we will end up getting there and making sure that these are very user-friendly for you all.
Stratford's happy.
Yeah, they seem happy with their eggs. Avon's enjoying theirs. So we will get us there, that's for sure. The rest of that section goes through the general requirements and procedures for all applications. Unless, I don't expect a whole ton of changes there unless there are statutory updates to be made outside of what was already discussed with the baseline review, but those will be all realigned. We were asked to take a look at how to incorporate more enforcement mechanisms as well, make sure the ZEO has their teeth so that they can go and enforce these regulations properly. So that will be a component of this section. And then we wrap up the outline with the easy section, the definitions. The definitions is something we work on throughout the entirety of the process. Every time we write these regulations, we're gonna find more terms that need to be added. So we like to build that as we go, make sure everything's getting addressed that needs to get addressed, and then that I would anticipate that might be one of the last sections you see edited because of that reason, so.
Is there a plan to put in place a process narrative for how, so each piece of this is request a permit, then you go to this step, then you go to some sort of process narrative for all of the steps in that process? Or a decision tree or anything like that would help a person in the community to identify what the appropriate steps are for themselves? Because, look, we're all gonna sit here and we're gonna read through this, and at some point it's gonna become really clear to us, but a layman who's really like to, I don't know what they're trying to do, to their house or whatever, I'd like it to be readable by the average person and follow, a step to follow. Has anybody considered that? Or even just a decision tree, if you wanna do this, then you go here, if you,
Yeah. We've seen those in other regs. I will say I have not built one before, but I'd be happy to explore that as something that we add to these regulations to make them usable like that. That section will, it's not exactly what you're asking for there, but that section will include an authorities table where it will just very clearly upfront say, this commission is responsible for A, B, and C.
Yeah.
This commission does X, Y, Z. And, direct them to the appropriate section for those processes. But we can take a look at how we can graphically show that, make it something like a flow chart of that sort.
And they were going to rewrite it in layman's terms.
as best they could.
We'll see, right?
Yeah.
When it comes up, yeah, I hear you. I also think it would just help the town employees. It seems sometimes there's lack of certainty on the approach that should be taken there as well.
Certainly. I think the realignment of duties will help clear some of these things up. They're very broadly split across your regulations right now amongst the boards, and I think we're gonna have a better vision of that with these updates. But any tool that is helpful for all parties to understand these regulations and implement them properly is gonna be valuable to this project. So we can I think it's worth taking a look at how we might be able to include that in this, even if it's just an appendice to the regulations. We have seen that before, where the checklists or the process is outlined as, in that way, in the regulations, so.
And this is just logistical. What's our next step? So you said you want comments from us by the 17th. Is that an email process? Do we send that through Sonia? Like, how do we approach that next?
So any comments or questions, concerns you have can get sent to Jordan. He's our contact point, so he can collect them all and send them back to us. The general process at that point is we get comments from him, we make the edits necessary, we send it back. We are anticipating that we'll be able to make and address any comments through just edits themselves, not in a second meeting. I understand your next meeting will have the public hearing for this PDD project, so I anticipate that would be the focus of that meeting itself. So we will make those edits and finalize the document. I would say by the end of the year, we would have our full outline. That being said, to give a little clarity on the homework assignment here, on the memorandum that you have in front of you, I just put together like a short activity. Go ahead and dive into this as deeply as you want to, but my idea here was I want to make sure that the structure is clear and intuitive and easy to navigate for yourselves at this stage. So what I suggest is sometime over the next week, open your current regulations, pick a section that you either use a lot or one that you just want to test out and see where it's going to be. Let's say you want to know where the parking regulations for this district are going to be housed. I want you to take a look at the reduced annotated outline that we just went through and see how quickly you can find where that might be sorted. The answers are in the long one, the 11 by 17 document. So the structure of that one, the first two columns is what you have in the 8.5 by 11. The alignment of the existing sections from your code is in the third column. So if you are trying to figure out where section 3.3.2 goes, and you can't figure that out based on the headings and the subheadings, the answer will be in here as to where that goes. If there's confusion about that while you go through it, those are the things we need to know so that we can make it clearer and easier for you to find those sections intuitively. Does that make sense?
Yes.
A little homework assignment?
That will be a fun assignment. I can already tell it's gonna be a little frustrating, so. Thank you.
Hopefully, after a few selections, though, you'll start to understand where, like, the thought process behind where these items are going. We want to make sure they're easy to navigate, and this is now our chance to say, did round one of edits make sense? Do we need to fine tune things?
Thank you, Taylor. That was very helpful to go through that.
Yeah, of course. I know it's a lot of material to digest, so if you have any questions about it while you go through it, please let Jordan know, and he will get back to us. It sounds like he might have been sick, so hopefully soon. But if we need to extend deadlines on comments and questions, we can do that. We've got the flexibility right now. Next steps, just so you're aware, is we will finalize this annotated outline after your review. We will be working with the town on scheduling and planning for the first public open house, probably for late January, but we'll hash that out with Jordan over the next few weeks. And then behind the scenes, I will be moving regulations into sections as I can, and we'll start getting input from Jordan get them in the best shape possible before we bring them to you, and then we'll move into that phase where you have time to fully review everything.
Section by section, right?
Yeah, we'll probably do 2 sections at a time, and we'll probably be grouping them in like topics. I expect you'll probably see uses and special development types at the same time. You'll probably see introduction material and administration and procedures at the same time, things like that. Things that just make sense for you to review together, get the full picture. Any other questions I can answer while I'm here?
No, it's super helpful, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Taylor. All righty. So, moving on to other business. We have any correspondence? No. We don't have a zoning enforcement officer, so
Yeah,
no.
here now.
The minutes from November 12th, anybody have a chance to read them?
Yeah, yep.
Those were a regular meeting, not a special
That
meeting?
was, yes, I'll make that
Okay.
other. I will.
That's the only thing I saw. All right, if we have,
Taylor.
everybody want to,
You have to make a motion to approve.
okay, go ahead.
I wasn't here. I'm like,
All right, I'll move, does anyone want to move to approve these minutes?
make a motion to approve.
I second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those are approved. And I'm sure if there were any bills and receipts, Sonia would say something. And is there any other business out there? Anyone in the public? All right,
Got it, okay.
a motion.
Okay, thanks.
Make a motion to adjourn. Yeah.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right,
That was it.
thank you all very much. Have a good holiday.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Enjoy your homework.
Should be fun.
I had good help.